I went in after dark because I was told not to. That was the draw, if I'm honest. The boards over the side door weren't even hard to pry. I popped the bottom plank with my pry bar and slid in sideways. Rook came after me when I patted my thigh. He hated it already. He stopped on the threshold and sneezed, twice, because of the air. Wet smoke, like a campfire left in the rain. It had that sour, soaked smell. I still smell it when I think about it. I set my bag on what used to be the front desk. The top had bubbled and cracked. The finish looked like dried mud. My flashlight beam caught dust, except it wasn't dust. It was ash. It fell in a slow, lazy way, like it didn't care what direction was down. The lobby was quiet, not regular quiet. Big, empty mall quiet. Everything had been stripped after the fire. No chairs. No carpet left. Just concrete and scraps. A bell that didn't work. Back when they used to ring that, people checked in there. I didn't think about that. "Sit," I told Rook. He didn't. He stood there with his head low and his tail stuck. He had never minded empty places before. He'd worked old hospitals with me, theaters, barns. He hated water and mirrors, but that was it. Here, he stared at the hallway that led to the rooms. He made this sound in his throat that I hadn't heard from him. It wasn't a growl exactly, more like a dry cough. He hacked like he'd licked a fireplace. Then he whined and pressed his shoulder to my leg. "All right," I said. "We won't stay long." I took the little recorder out and clicked it on. The red light blinked. It had a bit left on the battery. I should have brought a spare. I set it on the desk and let it run. I talked like I always did when I got to a place. Not fancy. "I'm here to listen," I said. My voice sounded thin to me. "You can talk if you want. No tricks. My name is—" I stopped. The throat didn't feel right. The air felt cold and heavy in a wet way. The sprinklers had popped in the fire, I guess. Some of them still had bulbs hanging on the pipes. One of them had a drop of water on it. That drop let go and hit the floor with a smack. Just one. Like a slow metronome that only ticks when you forget it. Chirp. I jumped harder than I should have. It was the little smoke alarm in the ceiling. There was one left over by the elevators. It did the low battery chirp. You know the sound. That sharp, small thing that makes you want to find a chair. It shut up after that. Just one chirp. But you know how those are. They come back when you move on. Rook flinched first. His ears went up and he looked around like it came from behind him. He pawed at his collar. The tag tapped the brass. That sound always made me feel calm. Not this time. I adjusted my flashlight and looked down. My boots had pressed deep in the ash. "Good bite." I have a chipped heel on the right foot. It leaves a little crescent missing on the outside edge. I never got it fixed. I don't know why. It made my own prints easy to follow when I backtracked. When I moved to get the bag, there was another footprint by mine. I don't mean one of mine. I mean next to my left boot. It hadn't been there when I put the bag down. The ash around it was damp and black, not gray, fresh. It was shaped like a right boot. Big. Same tread style. The heel had that same little chunk missing. I didn't see that then. I just stood there and said, "No," out loud, like that would help. "Rook?" I said. He pressed against me higher. He only did that when he wanted to go home. I scratched his ear and he coughed again, that harsh, dry hack. His breath came out in white in the beam. It shouldn't have. It wasn't that cold, but it felt cold. I packed the recorder again even though it was still rolling. I put it in my jacket pocket and started down the main hall. I kept my light low and slow. If you swing it, you miss things. The walls here had blistered paint. It made little islands and flaps. If you brushed it with your sleeve, it came off on you. The doors to the rooms were mostly gone or swollen shut. The ones that were still on had bubbled like someone had baked them. I could see where the fire had moved. It had licked up one side and over. It got hotter near the center of the building. I could tell from the way the ceiling had fallen. There was an elevator right off the lobby. The doors were open. No car. I never stepped close to those. I just looked enough to see down. The shaft breathed. Every few seconds a draft pulled up cold from below. It made the ash move like weeds underwater. The smell was worse there. Rook wouldn't go near it. He backed up and whined. He coughed again, pawed his face, and sneezed black on my pant leg. "Easy," I told him. "We'll go up the stairs." I found the stairs under a red exit sign with no power. The stair door was warped, but it gave. Inside was narrow and charred. My beam knocked loose ash off the rail. It fell like snow. I climbed to the second floor, I think. The landing wasn't marked. The steps felt wrong. The rise was an inch taller than normal. I don't know if that's true. It felt that way. It made my legs feel jittery. Rook climbed by me, his pads making soft prints. "Anybody on too?" I said to the recorder in my pocket. "We're just walking through." Chirp. It came from below this time. It bounced up the shaft. Rook stopped at that landing and looked through the little wired window in the door. We pushed into a hallway that mirrored the first. Long. Doors down each side. A cart tipped over with black towels. The ash fell harder here, like it came out of the air vents. My light caught it and it sparked like bees. That's what it looked like anyway. There was no sound, just that drip somewhere. And somewhere far, the smack of a strip of hanging drywall knocking when the draft hit it. I tried a few doors. They stuck. The handle left soot on my palm. Cold soot. It stuck to the little cuts. I wiped my hand on my coat and made a black streak. Rook stopped by one of the blank walls. He put his nose up and then backed away. He growled low. You don't want your dog to growl at drywall. There's nothing there to look at. I went over because I thought maybe there was a hole. There wasn't a hole. It was a wall with two long, dragging hand smudges about hip-high. They smeared toward the floor, like someone had wiped their fingers along as they sank. I touched one without thinking. The cold went through the tips of my fingers into my knuckles. Grit. It felt wet and sandy. It left rings of dark on my skin like I'd pressed charcoal. I wiped them off and they didn't want to come clean. They stayed under the nails. We walked the length of the hall and came back around. It didn't make sense. I know hotel floors. They go to that T where the ice machine is. This one just curved. I told myself we did a loop. I don't know. I kept seeing my prints, and then extra ones. Mine were deep and rough with that little missing bit on the right heel. The new ones were lighter, but they were on top of mine. They overlapped. Fresh gray over fresh black, like something was stepping just after me but doing it nicer. "Stop," I said to nobody. I listened to the recorder. All I got then was a wash of static when I held it up. It wasn't the good kind where you hear words. It just longed out. A hiss. I hit it with the side of my hand and the static popped and then went back to the room sound. Drip. My breath. Rook panting. Another cough. He'd never coughed that much. We tried another stair. This door opened on the same lobby. That doesn't sound right, because we had gone up. But I saw my bag on the desk and the little fan of ash where I had brushed it earlier. My first prints were there. The extra print was there too. Wet black like it had just been made. I hadn't been back for 20 minutes, maybe. I looked down at the floor where I had knelt to tie my boot, just to make sure I wasn't being stupid. I saw the chip wrong on the heel in my own and then in the extra. Same spot. I told myself, that was somebody's print from last time. Maybe someone followed me in when I went around the building. Maybe I was looking at my own from when I tested the floor. I don't know why I said that to myself. I knew. Chirp. Up above me this time. Rook turned and looked up. His tag tapped his collar. He wagged once by mistake and then dropped his tail hard. I put my hand on his back. He was cold through his fur. That's not real. Dogs don't feel cold like that in a building. He shivered. He shook like there was water on him, but he wasn't wet. Drops from a sprinkler hit us when we went under one. One landed in the corner of my eye. It burned for a second like it had soap in it. I blinked it out. We went back to the elevator landing because I wanted to mark the direction. When I shined the light across the open shaft, the beam cut through a heavier fall of ash. It came down in a thick sheet there, a column. My light laid over it. The ash waves broke around something in the middle of it. Like wind around a man standing still that you couldn't see, except where the little gray bits stuck and slid. I could see the outline. Shoulders, head, a rig across the chest like a strap. My strap looked the same when I caught it on myself in a window. The ash gathered at a place on the chest where it hit plastic. It made a little ridge along a recorder shape. That's what it looked like to me. I froze. Rook didn't. He barked once. A sharp, honest bark. Then he coughed like he cracked something and backed up until his rump hit my shin. The outline tilted toward us. The ash flowed off it and came toward me. It made no steps. It didn't need to. "Hey," I said, because I didn't know what else to do. "We don't mean trouble." Handprints popped in on the walls beside me. I didn't see hands. I saw the marks. Fresh smacks. One, then one higher. They were at my height. Palm and 4 streaks. They pressed in and left wet black. One hit the glass of the elevator call button and squealed a little. The noise made my teeth hurt. The cold moved with it. I felt it on my face first, on the skin under my eyes. Gritty. Something kissed my cheek and left smear. Another pressed the back of my hand. Not soft. It wasn't a caress. It was a clamp and then off. It took heat with it. Rook snapped at the air and got smoke. He spit and gagged and shook his head so his tag ticked. He set his feet like he wanted to lunge and then decided not to. I took a step back toward the stairs. The extra prints on the floor took that step too. It sounds like I'm making it up. I know how that sounds. I saw my own right heel, chip and all, turn and go the way I went, but there was no leg above it. Ash fell through that space like rain through an old screen. I aimed the light to dead center and walked backward. The outline moved slower then, like it couldn't handle the beam. That isn't true. It didn't care about the light. I wanted to believe it couldn't see well when I lit it. I just wanted to make sense. I breathed through my mouth and tasted the wet tar taste. The recorder in my pocket buzzed with a burst of static that matched my steps. Step, buzz, step, buzz, and then a long grind that made Rook flatten his ears. We made it to the stairwell door. It was heavier here. Thick, blistered like the others, but a fire door. I pushed it with my shoulder and it gave half an inch. It stuck on something and kicked back like a spring. The outline stopped 10 feet from me, then 5. The ash made a coat around it. The fall sped up. I don't know if the building breathed then or if the shaft draft reached us. The air moved wrong anyway. It pushed Ash toward the stair door, so the outline came faster without moving. "Move," I told Rook, and he slid around my leg and planted by the door, nose at the crack. He whined through his teeth. I should have left then, but there wasn't a then. It was now the whole time. It hit us all at once. The ash rose up and pushed past my knees, my waist. It didn't fall anymore. It came sideways and up. It filled my mouth when I tried to tell it to stop. That's not a thing you can say out loud anyway. Stop. The pressure landed on my chest. I could feel the shape of it. A palm across me and a shoulder into mine. Hard. Like a guy trying to get through a crowded doorway without saying, "Excuse me." It had weight. The door behind me pinched my fingers, and the pain should have grounded me. It didn't. I slid my hand along the door seam and found metal. My thumb hit a screw head. That small detail is stupid, and I remember it. The edge had a burr. It scratched my skin in a clean way that felt good because it was real. My other hand went to my throat because it was tight. I pulled my collar, and my fingers came away black. I didn't get air. When I did, it was all particles. It went into me like I was laying under a sandblaster with my mouth open. Rook went first. No, I don't want to say it like that. He was faster than me, always. He turned in the door gap and shoved his head into the crack and barked again, and ash poured over him like water over a rock in a stream. He shook and it didn't clear. His tag tapped his collar. I heard it even then. That bright little tick and all the dead sound. He looked back at me and his eyes had lines of wet around them from the grit. He coughed and tried to lick his nose and got black tongue for it. I drove my shoulder into the door again. I put all I had into it. It gave a lot this time, like whatever was behind had slid down. I saw the concrete steps and the rail and felt cold air move in from the stairwell. It tasted better. It was clean. The outline came with us into that space, faster than it should have fit through the door. It didn't have to fit through. It unrolled and rolled in. It took the space the way a crowd fills a room after a show. We went down 2 steps. 3. My boots slipped on the ash that had already settled there. My prints went dark and clear and then lost their edges as new fell into them. New right on top of the center of my tread. I looked down at the shape of the missing heel piece because my brain had that kind of extra time. They were mine. They were mine and they were not made by me. I knew that then, fully. I made one more and the next one made itself. The hand smears on the wall slid along at my height, like somebody with my reach pushed there too. I get it, I said in the stupid way you talk when the thing is happening. I hear you. It's okay. It wasn't okay. I hit the landing and tried the door to the outside. The bar on it had warped. It pushed and flexed and made rubbery metal sounds. The ash came faster and thicker. It got loud, I realized. It had a sound when it hit the concrete, when it hit my jacket. A dry patter. It stuck to the corners of my mouth, to my teeth. I breathed it, and my chest lit with a raw, cold burn, like mint and knives. I bent to cough it out, and that let it in more. When I took a step back to try to run up and slam the door proper, the outline stepped into me. There wasn't a hit like a punch. It was more like 2 things tried to stand in the same space. It slid into my shape and pushed the wrong way, cold under my skin. A cold hand slid across my ribs inside the coat and then kept going in. I can't explain it. It was me, but wrong. It wanted me to plant my feet where the prints were. It wanted me to breathe the way it breathed. The strap on its chest pulled across mine. My recorder dug into my sternum because there was another recorder there in that same spot. It matched. The ash stuck to us both, making one outline, and I couldn't tell which parts were me and which were the thing. I thought, it's wearing my gear. Stupid, slow thought, like it was an outfit. The red light in my pocket flashed, and the same red hung in the ash in front of me where another recorder should have been. 2 dots blinking together, a little out of time. "Rook," I said, or I thought I did. It was in my head, or in my throat. He tapped my knee with his nose, blind. He was under the fall. He coughed until he gagged, and his body shook hard against my shin. Then he pushed against the door again out of good habit. The outline's head tilted like we were talking. I put my hand out to push it and touched my own coat. I felt the seam under my fingers that I had torn last fall on a fence. I leaned forward like I was going to say something in someone's ear and breathed that whole room into me all at once. It fell and rose, and then there were no steps under me because I had braced on the wrong thing and slid toward the wall. The hand smudges moved with me. They stayed lined up with my own hands even when I tried to not touch. Some small part of me said, "Get lower, crawl," but my knee hit the step wrong and I folded. The door bar dug into my shoulder and then left me, and I was where the stairs turned, in the tight corner where even a thin guy can't pass without his back scraping. Something made a quick sound like a match in the ceiling. Not fire, a tick. Chirp. It was soft, and it was alone, and I knew we were done. The ash filled the space down around my head and into the hood of my coat, and all I could see in the beam was gray and the rough of concrete up too close. Rook's tag tapped once, metal on metal under it all, as he tried to stand up and couldn't, and then it stopped. I didn't move after that. I would tell you I got out. I didn't. I felt my heel lay into a print that fit just right, with a chip in the right place, and it was mine. Then there wasn't room for air anymore, just wet smoke and grit, and it went quiet again. Except for that one last drip from a dead sprinkler that hit the floor and was done. I hope you liked this one, and if you did, prove it. Hit that like button, subscribe, and make sure you come back for more. It takes a second, and it really keeps this channel breathing. There's another story waiting. You should probably watch it before the lights flicker again. See you in the next one.